The standard history of Indian independence usually begins and ends with a few highly educated men. Mahatma Gandhi is the most universally recognized face of this movement, representing the moral and political center of the struggle. For decades, the era from 1857 to 1947 has been framed as high-level negotiations and philosophical debates led by urban titans like Jawaharlal Nehru. It is a story of political chess played in the drawing rooms of Delhi and London. But the physical reality of the crowds in these archival photos suggests a different scale. Overthrowing the largest empire in human history could not be achieved through top-down leadership alone. It required an engine of millions willing to execute a strategy on the ground. The British Raj maintained a sophisticated administrative and military grip on the subcontinent, controlling everything from tax revenue to the local courts. Dislodging that system required a decentralized resistance that could strike from multiple directions at once. The machinery of that resistance relied on forgotten tactical fronts. These were commanded by teenagers, marginalized tribal leaders, and courageous women who faced the most violent responses the empire could muster. In the early years of expansion, the East India Company used the doctrine of lapse to annex any Indian kingdom that lacked a biological male heir. It was a legal tool designed to systematically erase local sovereignty. Rani Chennamma of Kittur responded by rallying her small state to fight a professional British army. Her forces destroyed the British cannons by sneaking into their encampments at night and mixing thick mud into the gunpowder, sustaining a defense long before the more famous 1857 uprisings. By the 20th century, this spirit of defiance moved into a radical underground. In Chittagong, a young teacher named Prithalata Wadedar sought to join the armed revolutionary movement. After being initially denied entry because of her gender, Prithalata trained herself in combat and eventually led a raid on the Pahartali European Club, a facility that notoriously banned Indians. To avoid capture after the raid, Prithalata took her own life by swallowing a cyanide pill. Her command proved that women were vital leaders in the most radical and high-risk theaters of the revolution. In mass movements like Quit India, nonviolent civil disobedience did not mean safety. For participants, it meant facing deadly police and military force without being able to strike back. During a march in Bengal, 73-year-old Matangini Hazra was shot repeatedly by British police, but refused to drop the Indian flag. In Assam, 18-year-old Kanaklata Barua faced a similar line of fire, gunned down while leading a group toward a local police station. Sustaining this strategy required immense psychological grit. In Bihar, Tara Rani Srivastava watched the British shoot her husband during a march. She bandaged his wounds, called to the crowd, and led the protest, while he died on the street behind her. This discipline was also the core of the Khudai Khidmatgar, a grassroots group led by Abdul Ghaffar Khan. When British troops opened fire with machine guns in the Kisa Kwani Bazaar, the group remained in place, with rows of unarmed protesters stepping forward to take the place of those who had been shot. The effectiveness of civil disobedience as a political weapon relied on these unarmed civilians holding the front lines through extreme attrition. On the fringes of the empire, tribal communities fought simultaneous wars against forced religious conversion and the imposition of colonial taxes. In the Naga Hills, 13-year-old Rani Gaidanlu launched a guerrilla campaign to protect her people's sovereignty. She commanded a forest-based insurgency for years before she was captured and sentenced to life in prison. During World War II, the struggle expanded into a formal military front. In Singapore, Dr. Lakshmi Salgal met with Subhash Chandra Bose to propose a radical addition to his forces. She formed and led the Rani of Jhansi Regiment, an all-female military unit. These women trained in combat and marched into the jungles of Burma, engaging in direct military conflict with British forces. These conflicts, from the Naga Hills to the Burmese border, demonstrate that the struggle for independence was a widespread campaign that demanded sacrifice from those society marginalized the most. The British Empire faced a crisis far beyond the high-level political pressure in London or Delhi. The colonial administration was physically overwhelmed. They found themselves forced to expend military and police resources against doctors, grieving widows, and tribal teenagers in every corner of the subcontinent. Recognizing these unknown leaders redefines the nature of India's freedom. It was an egalitarian fight for human dignity, where the forgotten masses paid the ultimate price for a victory often attributed to a few.